Sandie.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to walk through a lot of the stuff. All the stuff I'm going to say can apply to anything other than SharePoint. So if you're using some other application, a lot of the things I'm going to show you can actually apply to any sort of application you want. So what do I do at EA? So Electronic Arts. I hope people who plays games here. Everybody who's got an iPad or an iPhone. So we make lots of games. We're a big company. We have some interesting problems in the sense we're geographically dispersed around the world. We are in 4 continents developing. So there's probably 20 locations where we're actually having to develop. So the amount of collaboration and sharing we need to do is massive because people are doing the exact same thing in the sense of using the same tools, consoles, hardware, software, processes across many geographical boundaries. And so the amount of sharing we have to do for that is immense. Plus, it's really fast. So I'll give you an example. Anybody who bought an iPad 3, we need to quickly make iPad 3 games in a blink of an eye. And so we have probably 10 locations that make iPad games, and they have a very short window to make those games. So the amount of sharing that needs to happen to have best practices, lessons learned, pitfalls, again, has to be super fast. So that's a little bit about me. So I got 3 big ideas I want to share with you guys in sort of, I guess I'm going to try to inspire you to what SharePoint or some platforms can do for you. So my first one is you need to think differently, and I'll talk about each one of these. And then focus on user experience. So if anybody's seen me talk before, I'm big on user experience and why that's so important. And I think inside our enterprises, we really forget how important user experience is and how big of value it has. I was on a panel co-host of something called International Benchmarking Forum, IBF, if anybody's familiar with it. And I was helping review 3 sites on this sort of radio show they do. And they went from, I will be very honest, not so good, to just average. And the user experience was mostly the problem. The information was there, but actually how you navigated and how it looked and how easy it was to use was not great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk about curating content and why that's so important. So we heard yesterday, I think one of the people in this track was talking about being the receiver of information. It's super important for us to think about not just curating it, but actually how it's projected back. And that's a really hard problem because we actually are in a place where we got too much information for people to digest. So my first thing is thinking differently. And this is a big challenge for people. If I went back 4 years ago and think about social in the enterprise, there was hardly any companies doing it. I was one of the first ones actually doing this, and I've gone and talked at lots of different conferences over the last 3 or 4 years about social and enterprise. Today, that's very different, and I think there's lots of great examples, and I'm going to walk you guys through a bunch of examples just so you can see how many different industries and different cultures and different ways of doing things. So here's one thing to think about. So when I think about SharePoint or any other solution, I think about it as a platform first. So I don't think it as a all-encompassing solution that's going to do everything I want out of the box. I think that's a fallacy. I don't think anybody does that. I think we just heard that from Ted in his keynote, that there's not a one-stop shopping solution that does everything. These are the things that are important, though, that a platform needs to provide. So security is super important. Interoperability, I would guarantee we all probably have some sort of hybrid solutions, from our HR system to our mobile systems to our document management systems to our social system. They all need to work and seamlessly, so that's a huge thing. And they need to scale. So if all of a sudden you go from a company that has no mobile presence to everybody having a mobile device, how does that scale? It's a pretty hard problem. We want people to be able to sign on easily, so single sign-on. I have one ID. It follows me everywhere. I shouldn't have to do that. Have different IDs and different ways to log in. And then the other thing is I want to be able to develop on top of it. And develop is different than customize. So in SharePoint, you can go in and you can use Designer, and you can go in now in 2010 and go in the ribbon, and you can customize and make it look whatever you want. But that's customization. That's not development. When I say development, that means getting underneath the covers, using ASP.NET, CSS, HTML, whatever your coding language is, and actually making it different. So that's a platform. Most of the work we've done at EA is built on top of the platform. So we've done a lot of what people would call customization development work, and it's worked out pretty good for us so far, and I'll show you what we've done. So the other thing is I would say think big. I think a lot of people don't think big enough of what they're able to do in their company, and they get focused on, I'm just going to do this little thing, and they don't have this. Have a grand vision. Doesn't mean you're going to get there, but have an actual vision and strategy of what that's going to look like and how you're going to get there over years. It's taken us 3 years from start to where we are today, and we still have more plans to change it. But we had a strategy of what we're going to do each year and how we were going to roll it out, and that includes adoption as part of this thing. So that's one of the really hard things is how are people going to adopt this? How are they going to use it? I heard again yesterday something about ROI. I don't have the ROI discussion anymore because people in our company get it. We're a very social company. Every game we make has a Facebook page, a Twitter account, its own website. So as a consumer facing, we already do that stuff. So why wouldn't we do it inside? So it's not an argument or discussion I need to have anymore. But 3 years ago I did. I ended up in our CEO's office saying, hey, here's what we're doing with social profiles in the company. He's like, those are great, but can we skin them? That was all he asked for. Can we skin them? And I was like, oh, I got off easy. He just wants them to look nice. So you need to think big and a little differently. So here's some different examples of people who are using SharePoint, which you might not know. And here's their sites. So there's a combination of social sites, internet sites, and you can go find all these. I just basically pull these off either Microsoft site or, in fact, Google, just by searching. So I'm just going to walk through. TELUS is a huge telecommunication company in Canada. I think it has 35,000 employees all over the place. Again, very different looking site than the Coca-Cola one. Jet Propulsion Labs, which you might not think would have a SharePoint instance in social, very social and their internet site, and they spend a lot of time on this. So just, again, a very different company. These are very different industries. Scana is a power company. We're talking about mobile, so one cool thing they do is they can access all of their stuff from a mobile device. So if they are out in the field, which they have tons of people in the field, they can bring up a tablet or a phone and actually bring up all their site. And they can also post stuff, which is pretty cool. They can post video, so imagine they're at some power station, there's a problem, they don't know how to fix it. They can actually shoot a video on their phone and upload it so people in the office could help them fix it if they've seen it before. Or as a learning material in the future, like, hey, here's how you fix this complicated problem. So again, pretty cool. Again, a different, very different industry. Deloitte, everybody knows who Deloitte is. They've had their D Street for a long time. It's built on top of NewsGator, I believe, which is an add-on to SharePoint. Again, a very different industry than those other ones. So here's a little bit, if anybody knows SharePoint, this is kind of their public marketing diagram. You see a lot from them. And what's interesting about this is what we've used. So those are the things we've used. So we haven't used we haven't used all of the pieces, but we're using sites and we're using communities, search, and content. And those have proven powerful for us, especially search. You can do a lot with search once you get it figured out. So hopefully, after seeing all those different environments and industries, you can see it's not just some early adopters. These are big companies. I could probably have done 50 or 60 companies of very differing natures and different sizes of companies who are using SharePoint in different ways. And most of them have customized it. It's okay. You're going to customize it anyways. So my next thing is talk about UX. And UX has many different factors to it that you need to consider. So if you're going to build stuff out, is it going to work on your phone? Is it going to work on a tablet? In our company, we use tablets way more than we use phones, I would say, or we're moving that direction. So we're focusing most of our energy to make sure everything works on tablets. because we actually think we don't have people out in the field. People go to a lot of meetings, and a tablet's convenient, and you can't see as much on a phone, so it's not as useful. So tablet makes a lot more sense for us. But for your company, it might be a phone. Obviously, we still have computers, so it needs to work on a computer. And then you got to start thinking it needs to work in other rooms. So when you're having a meeting, you might need these solutions to work in all sorts of meetings. So it could be video conferencing, where you need to pull up another piece of your solution and show it. Or it might just be some more informal meetings, like in person. Again, you might need something up on a screen to actually be looking at it in real time. And so we're always thinking about all of these things, because these are what drives us inside our business. And you need to think about what is the UI that's going to be enable people to use it. So here's my question to people, and I ask this question all the time, and I ask it kind of jokingly. Who's read the user manual for Google search? Right, nobody put up their hand. Why is that? Anybody know? It does exist. It kind of does exist. You can go find it. But it's kind of, we already know how to use it, right? And even it's gotten more complex. So if anybody thinks about Google now, if you go into Google, and if you do it right now, you can, people who has a tablet or a laptop, if you go in there and you do search of images, it actually gives you refiners over here. And it says, I can do a small image, a medium size, a large, I can actually say a custom size or an icon. Last, it can say what date. Now, even Google has figured out over time the user interface needed to change because there was too much data. And people needed an easy way. You could have done all of that stuff from the command line before. That was completely possible, but nobody knew how to do it. So now they're making the user interface simpler and simpler and simpler. So I guess my ask is, if you're going to build anything, it needs to be that simple. If someone needs a user manual, that's my test inside EA. If they need a user manual, you have failed. Or you need to train them, you have failed. And we still do a little bit. We put up a couple 3-minute videos. Here's the best practice of doing something. But nobody goes through training. It should be very intuitive. So it needs to be these 3 things. If you do any studies of any solution or application, the first thing is it needs to be fast. If anybody goes to a web page and it takes 5 seconds to load, or 7 seconds, do you come back to it? Not so much. The experience isn't that great. You're like, that wasn't the best experience I had. It needs to be intuitive, like I just said, and it needs to be functional in the sense that it provides the features and functionality you were hoping that it was going to do for you. So those are my 3 things I always look at whenever we're doing anything inside EA around knowledge sharing and social. Here's our integrated solution, and I'll show you individual pictures of these. So we have our intranet, which is the top corner there, EA World. And then we have our profiles, which that is my profile, and it's skinned. So we can have different skins. We make them look cool. We're an entertainment company. They should look cool. And again, search kind of looks like Bing. Our old one used to look like Google. But it's familiarity. I'll give you a story a little bit about our search. What was really interesting, when we first put it out, it was kind of plain Jane. Then we made it look a little more like Google, and when we made it more look like Google, 30% usage went up just by making the front page look like Google. We didn't change any functionality, nothing, just the user interface. And now we put rotating images up of our games. So when you hit refresh, you'll get a new image, but it's really simple, right? It's just a bar. That's all it should be. You don't want to make it complex. And then we have a knowledge sharing portal, if you want to call it, or knowledge management system. But all these things are integrated and federated together, so it feels like one solution. So here's our intranet. And we've spent, obviously, some time customizing. This does not look like SharePoint out of the box, if anybody has seen SharePoint out of the box. But anybody can do this, is my point. That's kind of reaching for the top of the mountain and saying, hey, what is possible? And how long did this take? So this took honestly, probably about 5 to 6 months of one developer and some help with an artist. So we're lucky we have lots of artists in our company and designers. But use those. You need to get those people. If you don't have experience, go hire the experience. There's lots and lots of user experience people who know how to make it look good, and how to design it properly. I think at the last SharePoint conference in Anaheim, there was 9,000 people there. I believe 4,000 of them can make this for you. Something like that. I'm probably maybe exaggerating. But it does lots of cool things. So for us, I can see my colleagues. It shows my profile. It shows stock. It shows key information for the company. It shows our games. I can federate in or integrate in my own Twitter feed. I can integrate my own Facebook feed because we let all that stuff is open inside EA. You're allowed to look at that any time of the day, which is a good thing because we're a pretty social company. And you can customize it. So I won't show you customizing. And then here's my profile. So it's pretty simple. It kind of looks like some combination of Facebook plus LinkedIn, maybe. But it's been optimized to work for what makes sense at EA. So little things that you might not think have a huge amount of value. So one is the map in the corner there, in the top corner. So the map has huge value. I'll tell you why. So in the site I work, I live in Vancouver, Canada. We have 2,000 people on campus. We have 2 large buildings, 5 floors, plus another smaller one. There's 1,800 people there. I've been there 10 years. I do not know everybody. There's no way. When it was 700, I can almost say I almost knew everybody. Now somebody walks by in the hallway and I'm like, hey, do they have a tag on? Because I don't know if they work there. But if I want to find somebody, and I work with a lot of people, I literally can click on that map. I can go to their profile, click on the map, and it shows me exactly where they sit. And when I click on it, it would show me actually the map with their little picture in their cube. So imagine now if you visit other locations in your company, how important that is. So our headquarters is here in San Francisco. And when I go there, there's 3 big buildings, similar, 7 floors each. And when I want to find somebody, I just click on their thing, and I can go right to their desk. It seems like such a simple thing, but it's highly social, right? And it saves an immense amount of time. Because how else do you figure out where they sit? You go into Active Directory or Outlook, and you go, and it shows where they sit. Building 7, floor 6, cube 2780. And then you get up there, and you're like, can you tell me where Bill sits? And you waste 10 minutes. So it seems like a small thing, but it's huge. Other things, so all those fields are hyperlinked. So if I wanted to find out other information about people, I can quickly just go there and find other people who know French or English or who have an interest in, I don't know, C# or HTML5 or Photoshop or cycling or this movie. And again, that's social, and it's connecting people for other different reasons. One of the cool things we added over time, given we play games a lot, we added our gamer IDs for like Xbox 360 and PS3, so you could quickly go find somebody else at the company, outside of work, or inside of work, because we play at work, that you want to play with. Again, super social, but has a business value as well, right? I can quickly go in here, and a good example is I'm trying to find someone who spoke Japanese, and I needed to find them at a location. So in search and through this, I could find them almost instantly. If I think back 4 years ago, I don't know how we did that. In fact, it was near impossible. And it should work on a different device. So I photoshopped this in there, just so you know. Because it's a lot harder to take a picture. But it works on my tablet. My tablet's here. If I wanted to pull it up, I could show you. But it's important that it works. And it works pretty well just out of the box. We didn't have to do anything to make it work on a tablet. I got my browser. I fire up my browser, and it just works in my browser. So that's the kind of usability you want. And I can scroll, and I can do all sorts of stuff. If you're on a phone, I would do something slightly different. I would probably have customized this and made it a little bit different app, for sure. And then here's our knowledge portal. Again, it's pretty simple. We do things like articles, videos, blogs, communities of practice. And what we found is people use that stuff a lot, more than you might think. You need to encourage them and allow them to do this stuff, but it's all available. Videos is a massive thing. I think we've now hit, in less than 2 years, probably a year and a half, we've hit over 1,000 videos posted inside EA. And so those serve many purposes, from cool stuff we're doing to learning. So I'll give you a perfect example. An artist is working in a tool called Maya, which you can make characters. And what they do is they basically capture a video in real time, doing screen capture and narrate it, and it's a 5-minute video of this special technique you use. They post it up there, and any other artist who's trying to do that kind of work inside EA now can get help from an expert. We run a lot of workshops inside EA, so we bring subject matter experts together, so 25 to up to 100 people, and we record all of the talks they give. So it's the experts inside EA talking anything from business models to, I don't know, software engineering, et cetera. So those are all important things. So my last idea, which I'm running out of time, I just saw, is curating content. So we spend a lot of time curating content, and it's important. So there's video we need to curate. We also think about images. So we also curate images. We have a digital asset management system for images. We have a ton of images inside EA. And just articles. So those things all get curated back in the knowledge portal that I was showing you. And you can do all those things. It should, again, be really simple. To add an article or video, it takes just a couple minutes. So content overload is huge. You need to find a way to fix content overload. So the way we do it is a couple different ways. So we think about this model. We create content, we curate, and we consume. And we spend a lot of time on each of these pieces as content's getting built, and what are you going to do to make that happen. We have community managers. Partly, sometimes that's my job, but I have someone who works for me who's kind of a curator of content and community manager full-time. And their job is to go around to different physical locations, pull data, et cetera. So that's also an important piece to have someone who does that job actively. Here's this great picture. You guys can find my slides after and go find this image. It's pretty good. But it kind of just says, what does a community manager do? So if you don't have a community manager in your company and you're trying to gather a lot of content, you should go and think about what their job is and what they do day to day. And then just some kind of benefits of rich media, and I talked a little bit about this already. So learning and training, we use it for a lot. Just problem solving, so you got best practices people are sharing, or lessons learned. They write a white paper, super useful. People can find that. And then just knowledge sharing in general. There's lots of times where we need to rapidly move into a new space or do something very quick where you need to actually get that knowledge sharing. And sometimes we have to drive it. We have to go push that. But there's lots of benefits. Reduces duplication. We try a really humanized thing. That's why one of the reasons we did social profiles in the first place. You can't actually see everybody in your company. So if I can have a picture of somebody, I can find out a little bit more about them. They got a kid. They like skiing. Their favorite game is Mass Effect 3. That kind of creates some relationship with them that I wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. And it changes perhaps the way I work with them. And then finally, we think about the communication when we think about the information overload. So how do you do this? Right information, right people, right time. So we do two things. One is we have a newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks about our knowledge and about people, and we curate that content, and every employee gets this. And so we craft it. We put sometimes we theme them, and then the other thing we do is for all of our communities of practice, we have a digest email that they get every 2 weeks if you're a member. So that helps you figure out which articles were there, which blogs, which videos, et cetera. And then finally, search is really powerful. Obviously, we use SharePoint search with fast. Quick example. So I'm just trying to find, this type of information like Japanese, like I said. It finds me all the people I could refine by location, job title, a whole bunch of stuff. Again, I don't know how we did that. I can do that across any type of attribute that was in their profile. So I leave you with the 3 things I talked about, which is you need to think differently. It's really important. Don't feel like you're in this box. Expand the box. Look at what other people do. Really think about how you curate content, because I think that's important. And it's receiving and giving information. And then just what's your user experience? If you don't have a great user experience, people don't come back. Questions?
For about one or two questions, hands up.
We got 3 minutes and 15 seconds.
I have a question on user experience and search.
Yeah.
In a corporate environment, people always look for Google-like search results.
Yeah.
but a lot of investment needs to be done upfront in tagging.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, we have and I can take it offline after if you want to talk, but we have a combination of a taxonomy and folksonomy system in tagging. So I'll give you an example. If you want to tag a video or an article in our knowledge system, if the first time you type in rendering and nobody else has used rendering, it will now become a known tag. But if rendering was already used, it would actually do type ahead for you and show it's been used 128 times and you just select it. So it's pretty slick. It took us a long time to figure out how to do that properly. And so we have thousands of tags. We don't care, but the top ones rise to the top, and we use tag clouds quite a bit.
I think we have time for one more question. Here you go, Joseph.
Yeah, hi. I had a question. As you talked about that you're dealing with 4 continents with this. From a diversity aspect, did you find you had to do any kind of customizations based on location and based on how somebody, say, in Asia would use it versus somebody in the United States? And how do you deal with making those kind of changes when that stuff comes up?
Yeah, great question. So I think from a content perspective, we actually visit lots of those locations, so we pull content from them, so that helps. One thing we're really lucky is English is our primary language. And in almost all of our sites, we speak English. And even in Shanghai, where it's probably the least spoken, it's still well read. And so that's helped a lot. But going out to all those locations and doing like a studio profile and shooting images and interviewing people at different locations actually helps immensely with creating sort of that global culture.
Thank you so much. Bert Sandie, everyone.